Now, if you guys want to chime in at any point with a question, just feel free. If anyone's background noise gets noisy, I'll just mute you. And
You're not going to mute me.
All right, you're muted. feel free to unmute yourself at any time. I appreciate the questions if you have them, and someone else is going to benefit from them. That's for sure. So please don't hesitate, no matter how silly you might think it is. And if I don't know it, I'll just work it out later for you and get back to you on it. So I'm happy for this to just be me talking or an open discussion. Either way, whatever happens, let's just have fun and learn something from it, or just get reminded of something. I think that's the biggest thing. It might not be that we don't know what to do, but it's always good to have a reminder. This wasn't one of the topics to talk about, but the mindset, I think, is very important. Just to keep things simple, I like to categorize people into two areas. We've got challenge killers, ones that just absolutely thrive on a challenge, no matter what challenge it is. And then we've got the ones that get really nervous about a challenge, and it almost, well, probably is more of a negative at times to actually have the word challenge there. Now, that's a whole different kettle of fish. That's not my skill level for psychology, but what I like to talk about is that whatever your personality is, we've got to be aware of it, we've got to be mindful of it. And if you're the sort of person that absolutely thrives on a challenge, then that's own that challenge, but then your biggest challenge will be post-challenge, if that makes sense. And we need to work on strategies to start to allow a bit more flexibility into our life post-challenge. And if we keep ignoring that post-challenge, then all of a sudden we're going to need a challenge every time. So it's not that you're going to nail it first time. It's not like now that I've said something that all of a sudden it's going to be easy on week 5. It's still going to be hard work in week 5, but in week 5 this time, you might find it a little bit easier than the last time you did a 4-week challenge. And the time after that, if you're mindful of it again, you might get a little bit better at it again and again and again. And it's all about building that competence at coming out of the challenge, if that's your personality. So that's the other personality. We've got the ones that thrive on challenges and almost feel like they need a challenge to do anything with their goals. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's just the way it is. You just got to accept that and then work on the other side of it. And then you've got the people that get nervous, anxious about challenges. And I think the best thing to work on there is knowing that you're a bit of a chipping away at the goal type person, right? You're a chipper. You're not going to be an all or nothing. You're not going to nail everything. You're not going to perfect anything. You're going to look at a meal plan and take little pieces from it. And the things you like, you can incorporate, and the things you might not like, you'll substitute. And that's totally fine. But being aware that your personality, the strength in your personality is the fact that you can allow a little bit of flexibility in and not beating yourself up when you can't stick or don't stick to the meal plan, because the meal plan is just an example. So if that makes sense, we've got those two personality types, and either way, we've got to go into this feeling really positive and not expecting these people can't expect the 28-day challenge to be 4 kilo weight loss. I would expect that 28-day challenge to, by the end of the 28 days, feel like you're in a little bit of a routine. Whereas these guys, all right, your 28-day challenge it starts on day 29. Okay, because we know you're going to nail the meal plan because you've got that mindset where you're just stubborn and you're going to smash it no matter what. Day 29, what's going to happen? That's your challenge. So have a think about that and decide where you are in that one. And there's no right or wrong, except to be happy about who you are and just work. It's good to always work on your weaknesses and just one challenge at a time. So like I said, I used to be the all or nothing, and I'm getting slightly better at not being the all or nothing these days. I had a bit of chocolate on Monday night, which was day one of my plan. But I was stoked I didn't have the whole block. And day 2, I had a handful of chicken crimpy shapes, but I didn't have the whole box. And so previous me would have been none of those. I definitely wouldn't have done that Monday and Tuesday. But Saturday, my cheat day, would have been all of those things combined into one meal. Anyway, all right. So the first thing I was going to talk about was weight fluctuations. Now, super important, as Tony's hooking in, to what looks like, it looks like you're watching a movie, and it looks like a sad movie and a bowl of ice cream, but I know it's not. It doesn't. Get another spoonful of the cookies and cream. So weight fluctuations. And Tony, you're a great example for this one. So Tony's diabetic and has fluctuations in blood sugar levels and whatnot. So tonight, I really want to teach you guys how to not get hung up on the scales. There might be a little bit of numbers here. So if you're not a numbers person, just bear with me. Okay, things that can affect your weight. I know Jono in that video, if anyone watched week 1's video, Jono talks about it and he briefly goes over it, which is fantastic. He explains it probably better than I could explain it. So if you haven't seen that, watch that. But things that can affect it is salt in your food. Now, salt, no calories, or if there is calories, it's next to nothing. So salt can't make you gain fat, but it can increase your fluid and your water levels and how much you retain a lot. Okay, so not to say that salt's bad, but because we need a certain amount, especially when we're exercising, especially if we're sweating, we need salt in our food. It is important, but it's just something to be aware of, that if you have a salty meal the night before, then you may be up on the scales the next day. And if you can use that as feedback when you hop on those scales and you think, all right, well, I've stuck to the plan, so I know it's not fat. What could it be? Oh yeah, okay, I had a curry last night that was quite salty, so it could be up from that. So another thing is just the volume of food in your belly. So, and you go in gastrointestinal tract. So our meal plans are quite voluminous. We've got lots of vegetables, lots of foods that are big but not high in calories. So all of a sudden, instead of getting, let's say, this much food in our belly over the day, we're now getting this much food in our belly over the day. So that first week of a 28-day fat loss could see your weight increase. And it's not fat, it's volume in your gastrointestinal tract that's just sitting there. By week 2, you're not going to go from this to this in week 2. And then week 3, you're going to eat this much food, and then that much food. It's not going to happen. So your new normal is now this. So that first week isn't really an accurate measure. And week 2 compared to week 1 is definitely a more accurate measure. Okay. Another thing is the amount of carbohydrates in your system at the time. So carbohydrates, fuel, is our main energy source, and the muscle glycogen can hold fluid. So nice full muscles full of energy can hold fluid. So all of a sudden, our weight, even if we go from having 0 carbs after 12 o'clock to then one day having rice at dinner, it's not that you ate a humongous amount of calories that put on a kilo of weight, but you might have extra fluid in your body because of the timing of the carbohydrates in the day. So all of a sudden, if someone has a super strict week and then they go out and drink sugary drinks, and they wake up the next day and they put on 1.5 kilos, they haven't put on 1.5 kilos of fat, they've put on 1.5 kilos of fluid and water. But that can be absolutely devastating to one's mindset if you're not aware of that and you don't believe that as well. Another thing is hormones, and what time of the month it is for females as well. So that can affect things big time. The week before, you will be burning more calories as well. So you're going to be hungrier, which means you're probably going to get more volume in your belly, and you should eat more because you're hungrier. You're actually burning more energy. Plus there's going to be fluid just from the hormones. So people will gain anywhere from 1 kilo up to 2 kilos of weight around that time. So knowing your body and what it does around that time, you can sort of judge where you are compared to last month. And that's very unfair for females because pretty accurate weigh-in every week. And unfortunately, females will have to wait a month to have an accurate weigh-in. So tracking regularly and comparing to 4 weeks previous is the best way to go about that, if that's relevant to you. I think I nailed most of them there. Now, I want you to understand, and I want to convince you that it's not fat if you're putting on weight overnight. Because if you'll have people that come in one day and say, I was this much, and the next day I was this much, and the next day I was this much. And I'm all for weighing daily if you understand the fluid concept and also how much it takes to actually put on 1 kilo of fat. So I think if you can hear me and I make a visual as well, that will nail all learnings. Let's go to this one. All right, so you can see the screen. Thumbs up. Cool. Let's get that bigger. All right, so I just did some numbers just to make it pretty easy. So basal metabolic rate. So that's, Jono nailed all this. So if you don't know what this is, really good to go and watch that video from week 1. But basal metabolic rate is basically how much your body burns just sitting or laying in bed just to function. That's a lot of calories burnt. This is someone that's 72 kilos, 1.3 activity level. If you don't know what activity level is, don't worry about it until you watch that video that Jono goes through. But this is basically someone that sits at the desk and exercises a few times a week. So as you can see, their basal metabolic rate of 1,600 calories compared to their total daily energy expenditure. So that's how much they burn because they sit at a desk and they exercise a few days a week. There's only 400 extra calories there for that person. So most of their calories are burnt just from living. Now that's a massive thing to understand right there, because this is why we put so much focus on food instead of saying, okay, well, let's nail your exercise first and food will come later. Let's nail your food first, because you can't out exercise a bad diet, because this is how much Your body, this person, 80% of their energy burn is from living. 80% from living rather than exercising and working. All right, that's a huge amount. Now, if you want to put on, not that we all do, but if you want to put on a kilo of fat has the energy content of around 7,000 calories. Okay? Now, we can put on a kilo of water overnight. The only way to put on a kilo of fat, this person eats 9,000 calories to put them in a surplus of 7,000 calories. Does that make sense? If they ate in one day 9,000 calories, the difference between this one and this one is now 7,000 calories, which is the equivalent of the energy content of a kilo of fat. So if you're putting on a kilo of weight overnight, I guarantee, unless you're doing this, it's not a kilo of fat, it's a kilo of fluid. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Now that leads me to the next point of, if you have a square of chocolate like I had the other night, which is, let's say it's 20 calories. Why would we get beat up over that if it takes 7,000 to put on a kilo of fat? Why would we get cranky at ourselves for having that one square of chocolate if we need to have, I don't even know how to work that out, 10, 100, 300, is that right? I think 300 squares of chocolate or something like that. One, just enjoy it, move on. The other thing is that 20 calories goes into your day 100 times. So that one square of chocolate is 1% of your daily intake. 1%. So the issue isn't eating good or bad foods, it's our relationship with food and the way we think about certain foods being good or bad. That one, if you can think about that one square of chocolate as a number, and that number is, and I'm just guessing, 20 calories. If you can think about it as a number, then you're going to have a much better relationship with having a treat, a small treat, and you're not going to feel like you failed and then devour the whole block. That's what we got, is if we know these numbers and if we're in control of them while we're learning through a 28-day challenge, then after that 28-day challenge, we have a lot more education and we can go away from logging food and we can go away from learning about numbers because we have a fair knowledge. But then at times you'll stray and you'll start beating yourself up again, and then it's probably time we start learning more about the numbers again. Chill out if the scales are up. If you're sticking to the plan, just trust the plan and it'll all work out. All right. The other thing I wanted to talk about was resistance training and its importance on fat loss. So there's so many ways I could go about this, but I want to keep it as simple as possible. Muscle and fat both burn energy. Okay, so any tissue in the body burns energy. Muscle burns a little bit more energy than fat, not a humongous amount, but it does burn more energy than fat. Now, let's say scenario A, we've got someone that wants to lose 30 kilos and they go and walk, and that's all they do, and they diet, they eat well, and or eat in a deficit, I should say, instead of eating well. They walk and eat in a deficit and they lose 30 kilograms. They do a great job and they're pretty happy with where they're at. And they've lost, when we look at their body scan or their body composition, not that we ever need to know this, but if they did, what happens when you're in a deficit is you lose muscle and fat. You don't just lose fat. So let's say they lost 20 kilos of fat and 10 kilos of muscle. That's just an easy number to remember. So, and everyone's going to be different. Some people lose muscle a lot and at a fast rate, and others don't. Others just seem to hold it. But when your body is not eating enough to maintain, it will lose fat and lean mass. So that person might lose 30 kilos, and let's say they were 130 and now they're 100. And then I might need to write this down so you can all stick with me. I'm even losing myself. Okay, 130 kilos, they're now 100 kilos. They lost 20 kg fat, 10 kg muscle. So in total, with 100 kilograms they now are, I just did a quick calculation. Their basal metabolic rate, this is just rough, is about 2,200 a day. So to function, their basal metabolic rate to lay in bed all day is 2,200 calories to maintain weight if they did nothing all day. Okay? Now, bear in mind, yes, muscle burns a little bit more. So a 100 kilo person that has more muscle might burn slightly more than this and whatnot, but don't even worry about that. Just know that roughly around 2,200. Then we go to scenario B, and we go to someone that is, let's just minimize that. Okay, this person is 130 kilos also, conveniently. Who would have thought? And these ones have decided they're going to do some weight training to lose the fat, and they're going to walk, or maybe they're not going to walk. They're just going to do weight training because they love it so much. But let's say they walk for their aerobic fitness, their cardiovascular health, and they also decide to do weight training because they want to keep as much muscle as they possibly can while they lose the fat. Because remember, if we just go into a deficit, we don't give our muscles any stimulus, we're going to lose both lean mass and fat mass. And we probably will lose some lean mass anyway, even if we do weights. Everyone's different. So this person has now lost 20 kilos. They're 110, but they lost zero muscle. They lost 20 kilos of fat. So they've lost the same amount of fat. They don't look, this person compared to this person, they're not going to look more overweight. The only extra weight they have is muscle. So it's not like, well, I prefer this one because they're lighter. Muscle has its benefits as well. This one is going to be winning every day. They're functionally stronger. That aside, if we calculate their basal metabolic rate, because they still have more tissue on their body, they have the same amount of fat as the other one, but 110 times 22. So their basal metabolic rate is now 2420. Okay. Now this person goes on a holiday and they decide to have a fun night out. It's a lot harder to make damage on a 2420 basal metabolic rate than it is to make damage on a 2200. Okay, so the more muscle that we lose as we lose fat, the harder it is to maintain when we do go down. The more muscle we keep, the more metabolic burning tissue we have on our body. The other benefit is that this person with more muscle, remember this person lost 10 kilos of muscle, this one lost none. This person that has more muscle is stronger, they're going to have more energy, and they're going to perform better during the day. So all of a sudden, this 2400 that they're burning, they're going to be burning even more than that throughout the day. This gap starts to increase from 220 gap to all of a sudden having a better session, being more athletic, burning more during the day, having more energy, performing well, and that gap might be now 400 calories. And then all of a sudden, they've got an extra meal they can eat each day. So those that hate numbers, I'm sorry. But that's probably the number one reason why I'm a massive advocate for strength training as an amazing form of fat loss. I'm not going to say this person won on the scales. This person wins long term. Okay, and has less battles long term. The other thing is this person is now stronger. So if they all of a sudden want to lose more weight, they can lift more weight in the gym, so they burn more calories there and then. Yep. They can run faster, and all of a sudden it's easier to strip that fat whenever they want to, not let alone keep it off. All right, any questions on that one? There are other benefits as well, but I just wanted to nail that one so I don't confuse anyone. Just nail that one. So if you have questions on that, totally understand. I can go over one of those points again if you need. But at the end of the day, they lost the same amount of fat. This person lost no muscle, has a better metabolic rate because of it. Not to mention that more muscle burns more energy than fat anyway. Yeah. Makes some sense. I'm getting nothing. We all good?
Yep. Yeah, no, I'm getting there.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Jill. I saw you say, what was that?
Me?
What were you saying?
Oh, it's true that, because if I could dig out a picture of me 2 years ago at this same weight, I looked so different.
Yeah.
Can you dig that? Can you dig that?
I'll try. I'll have to go through Facebook because it was actually posted to a group, like me and some friends a couple of years ago. We were all trying to motivate each other and it didn't work, but I posted on that. So I'll go back through later tonight and see if I can find it.
Yeah. No, and some people, oh, sorry, I'm going to mute you. Some people will, like I said, hold muscle more than others, and some people might not have to do the resistance training as much. Others will need to do it a lot to keep the muscle. And at the end of the day, we don't need to think about that. We just got to know that resistance training is necessary, not only for fat loss, but obviously our bone health. As we age, bone density decreases, but we can stop that from happening. We also go through sarcopenia. So even if your goal isn't to lose fat, but as you age, you do lose muscle mass unless you Jill reverse that cycle. So living proof that we don't need to have sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is muscle wastage for those that, well, no one should really know that word. Muscle wastage is something that just happens as we age, and unless we do something about it. I'm not sure about females, but the best training age for males is around about the 35 mark. I think 35 years of age to 40 years of age when they're going to be at their strongest. So bring it on.
Josh, there.
And then after that, we slip backwards. We start to lose that. So whether it's only to do, but I know it's got a lot to do with hormones. Not too sure on everything about it, but I know it's something to do with the hormones, and whatever happens, I know that we lose muscle. So I'm against that. I don't want that. Because then all of a sudden it's easier to put on fat, as I mentioned. Metabolic rate reduces. Everything reduces. So resistance training, don't get hung up on the scales because your resistance training is going to win long term. Just follow the plan, listen to the numbers, listen to your body and how it's feeling. The photos, the measures, all of those things start to become more relevant when you understand what all these weight fluctuations that are happening and what resistance training is going to do to your weight. If I wanted a weight loss challenge, I wouldn't get you doing any weight training and I wouldn't let you drink any water and we'd get that weight down as fast as we possibly could, but it's not about that. We want fat loss and hopefully muscle maintenance. All right, I'll stop preaching. And if anyone has any questions, I'm sure there's one out there, surely.
So Josh, when you say resistant, it's just not weights, is it? It's just not lifting weights. You can use your own body weight, like push up.
Yes, exactly. So resistance is anything, even walking has some resistance to it, right? We're resisting gravity. The more resistance that we have, the more potential for muscle maintenance or building, whatnot. Okay, so if we're walking then with a weight vest, there's more resistance. So the legs have to work harder. So those muscles are under more demand. And when we provide that stimulus to the muscle, we're going to maintain that muscle more or potentially gain a little bit depending on certain circumstances. If we're talking about, great exercises that are body weight, things like push-ups, squats, lunges, absolutely fantastic. And how would we increase that resistance? By adding weight or by slowing the movement down. So really controlling it, making sure the muscles are doing all they can rather than bouncing through the movement. And if we're bouncing, gravity does more work on the way down. We kind of let gravity do it and then we bounce back up. If we slow it right down, that's a way of making an exercise harder and increasing the demand on the muscles as well.